All right, we are live, guys. Um, Running a little late. Jared had a basketball game tonight and ran a little late. Had to drop Papa off, but it's been a good day. It's been a good day. So this will be streaming on Spotify. And for those of you that are listening, we try to do the best we can to make sure that it is this is usable, during or as a audio, as like an audio, what do you call it, podcast. So got people trickling in. The tariff is live, so tomorrow there will be a tariff, and it's going to be interesting for sure. And hopefully, one of my buddies from high school, Jason, he was in my wedding. He's a professor at George Mason University, teaching economics, so he's a PhD in economics. Hopefully, I'll be able to get Jason on here one of these Sapchats. It's always good to hear from somebody who teaches this for a living. I was watching Pete Roth's video and sent them an email. Said, hey, if you're going to have a roundtable, I sent the email to Samara and Pete. It came up on there. I said, hey, if you're going to have a roundtable, I'd certainly be interested in making the trip up to Wisconsin and talking and just conversing about what the tariffs are going to do. So questions, if anybody wants to jump on, I could send you a link if you wanted to jump on and have a discussion. I know David is out chasing sap with flashlights. So some of you, it's warm, especially in the Midwest, sure, are either in the sugar house boiling, running the RO. But yeah, I don't have any notes written. This is kind of a impromptu, but we are going to see a tariff, 25% tariff. And what does that mean? Nobody really knows, but we can have some discussions on it if you guys can hear me okay. But post your questions. There's a really good discussion going on my Facebook page it's very cordial. People are having discussions. Yeah, if you got a question, post it on there. So far, this probably isn't going to be the best Sapchat for Spotify. Without David, you just don't have it. Tom Tompkins, you're going to miss us. When bulk gets piled up here, it will drive your price out of sight. Where are you at, Tom? What do you mean you're going to miss us? Are you from Canada? Where are you at? I think there's a misconception that the 25% tariff could just increase the price of bulk syrup 25%. If it does, it would be a coincidence. Like there's so many factors in this. You can see, I was checking with ChatGPT on where we're at for bulk, the exchange rate when that was announced today. Let's see. CAD to USD conversion exchange rate. Let's ask ChatGPT. It has more up to date. All right. I do it like backwards from everybody. It says 68.9, 68.94 cents. So roughly 69 cents. Bruce Bascom once explained it to me as to why he uses the other exchange rate, divides it by a number, does it a little differently. But New Brunswick, Tom, you're up there with Hargroves, Zach Hargrove. I was texting him today. He was joking with me about it because I was kind of curious what he thought. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Depends on oil. Whatever the price of oil does, there's a strong correlation to the loonie, which is the Canadian dollar. And if oil goes down, the loonie gets weaker against the US dollar. So you're close to him. Steve Doyen, I'm in Vermont and ship my syrup to Quebec, so I assume if Quebec responds with equal tariffs, I guess I'll have to sell to a US bulk buyer. Might be your lucky year there, Steve. I think that there's going to be some US bulk buyers. I mean, I wonder what Maple Grove's going to do, right? Maple Grove's in St. Johnsbury. They get tankers from Canada. And so Maple Grove is owned by BG Foods. So they did what was the most logical economic bean counter thing, which was, hey, let's get rid of drums, buy our syrup by the tanker. And I just wonder with that tanker coming across, the U.S. border, if that's going to affect their pricing. I think about Bruce too, with his warehouse in just north of Maine there. It's his syrup typically when he buys it from the sugar houses in Maine, and then he ships it north to his warehouse. So it's U.S. syrup shipped into Quebec, and then when he needs it, he brings it down from the warehouse. So it's actually U.S. produced syrup, but I imagine there could be some red tape there with it moving both ways. So even though be interesting to see what happens with that. Good question. So WTWHTV12 says, how soon will we see the prices of lumber go up? Steve Doyen says, I definitely won't sell to Maple Grove. Don't want to see producers suffer anywhere. We are all farmers and brothers. Border doesn't mean much to us. I mean, I have some theories as to why. There's a lot of U.S. manufacturers that are competing with Canadian manufacturers. And if you buy Chinese stainless and bring it into Canada, there's no tariff, right? And there's a 25% tariff on buying Chinese stainless, bringing it into the U.S. So if you're a U.S. company and you're supplying, say, stainless fittings, and you're buying it from China and you're paying 25, which will now be a 35% tariff because he's adding 10%, right? And if you're north of the border, you're not paying a tariff. So if you bring it in and then ship it down, and they don't know if it's from Canada, or China, I imagine it's happening. And it's not a loophole, it's fraud. So some people say, well, they found a loophole. No, it's actually fraud. I mean, if they declare it, cool. So Kevin Holy says hello from Montville Heights. Yeah, I guess this is what I think is going to happen. I think the price of organic syrup as a whole is going to get closer to conventional syrup. I think conventional syrup is going to go up a little bit anyways, because we are really low in inventory as an industry. So, I mean, there's just not a lot of dark syrup out there to begin with, conventional dark. So anybody that's trying to keep their contracts going are probably using organic to keep the contracts going. I mean, it's pretty much. And the reason being is most of the large producers that are able to hold inventory are organic. And that's how a lot of people are taking care of their customers. So when will we see the prices of lumber go up? See, I thought it was interesting. I read an article not too long ago about how we have been tariffing. Is that a word? Is that the verb? Putting a tariff on whitewood, and for the first time in a long time, whitewood out of like North Carolina in the South there was actually competitive. And I don't remember the article, but we were doing some things to protect the U.S. timber industry. I know milk might be an issue, might be part of the problem. I was actually thinking, I was watching that press conference the other day with the new press secretary, and they are allowing different types of new media in there. And I guess that's what this is, right? So they're looking for new media to become part of the press. I don't think I have the followers to justify a seat there in the White House briefing room. But it doesn't hurt to ask, right? I mean, this is interesting. What's that? I'm good. So it's a big day today. Jonathan got his congressional nomination for the Naval Academy. It was like kind of the final step. So that's pretty cool. Where's it at, honey? That congressional nomination. It was actually, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's harder to get into the Naval Academy than it is to get into Harvard. There's only 4,300 students. But yeah, right here. Boop. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And Jonathan is getting ready for what, postseason starts what, in 2 weeks? Wrestling. So he is at 95 pins. So he's at 95 pins. 100 and what? 129 wins. And 95 of those are pins. And he thinks he could potentially get, 5 more to 100 pins. I don't even know or have heard of anybody that got 100 pins in high school. I'm sure it does. He's a pinner. Well, Steve, thanks for the congrats, but he still needs to be accepted. So it's quite a interview process. He was invited to go out there in November. So my wife and I went to Annapolis, and it was awesome. Like, I knew the Naval Academy was a big deal, but actually going there and seeing it and experiencing it, and then he came out like glowing. Like, he was like, "This is awesome, Dad." So he got to go on a ship, learn about radar, eat in the mess hall, went for a run. He had to do his PT. So a lot of people don't know this, but Jonathan had the national record for pull-ups by the time he was 8 years old. And he was getting shout outs from like American Ninja Warriors and stuff. He was on the news because he would go downstairs. We're all sleeping in the morning. He'd go downstairs and do his pull-ups, and you'd hear the bar squeak. And he had to climb the rope to get up to the chin-up bar. He didn't get any breaks, man. So he's earned it. And then the cool thing is they were talking about how 30 kids from each class, so there's 4,300 kids, 30 kids from each class are chosen for BUDS, which is the Navy SEAL training. And the success rate of somebody off the street to become a Navy SEAL is about 10%. If you go to the Naval Academy, the success rate's about 80. So they kind of like watch people for 4 years and then, tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, we need an officer for some of these SEALs." So yeah, pretty cool. And then you have a choice. So it's a 4-year degree, high success rate, graduation rate. It's an engineering school. It's, I guess, the best public school in the country. But it is harder to get into the Naval Academy than it is to get into Harvard, which is interesting. I hope he makes it. He might not. Who knows? Man, my hat's crooked. Sorry. So maybe I'll see you guys in Wisconsin. So Steve did 6 years as a Navy intel officer. It is a good foundation for a career. So you know about these Naval Academy guys. You ever been to Annapolis there, Steve? It was beautiful. So it was where the speed of light was first measured, which I thought was an interesting story. I actually have all the footage. I just never made a video out of it because it really wasn't a good story. This is where they first measured the speed of light, and somebody came to him and said, "Hey, the French are close. One of the professors, we want you to measure the speed of light." And he was just like, "I'm busy, man." And then the guy was like, "You will measure the speed of light?" And he just went out and did it. I'm sure there's more to it than that, but he didn't even want to do it because he was busy with students in class. And yeah, he figured it out. And what else was the Dormitory there is the largest in the United States, the largest dormitory in the United States. It has its own zip code. The campus is beautiful. I thought the obelisk there was cool. So every year, as part of moving as a plebe, which is like a freshman in college, the midship and become a midshipman, they have to, the upperclassmen grease up this monument, like a granite obelisk, and they got to climb up the top, and they have to take one of the like plebe hats and switch it over. It's usually on ESPN every year, and then we got to see the like the stadium where they play the Army game. You know, they're an NCAA football team, so they also have more NCAA programs. The Naval Academy has more. There's only one college that has more NCAA Division I programs, and that is Ohio State, and they have 60,000 students, whereas the Naval Academy is 4,300 students. I mean, we're excited. It's free education. They actually get paid a little bit every month, and then if he gets accepted, the likelihood of Jared or Benjamin, they do like to pull family. So Steve said he was actually there for funerals. So if your son gets in, he'll be called a ring knocker. I just think it's cool. So my father-in-law was Navy. He boxed in the Navy. And then wrestling's a big deal. So the wrestling coach there is Kerry Kolap, who is a legend here in Pennsylvania. Anyways, enough Naval Academy discussion. Let's talk exchange rates, maple syrup, what's going to happen. I see a lot of discussion. I hear a lot of discussion that people are kind of rooting for, like, you know, $4 a pound, $5 a pound. And it's like, I don't think people know what happens on the backside of that. So I want to say about a third of the industry is ingredient market. So let's think about Cracker Barrel. And Cracker Barrel is purchasing maple syrup from Maple Grove. And that syrup is now split 50-50 with cane sugar. They just changed it from 45 to 55 to 50-50. And that used to be the largest maple syrup contract in the United States. And when the bulk price of syrup went up to $4, they basically, you know, had to change something. And so that was a large chunk of syrup that came off the market. And I think that's what happens is you lose that ingredient market when the bulk prices get too high. There's definitely a happy medium. And if you lose a bunch of markets, and then what happens if syrup goes up to $4 a pound? Everybody expands. Everybody's expanding, but they don't know on the back end. A lot of people switch to agave, cane sugar, other things. And then, you know, there's more supply than there is demand. Tom says, I hope it does increase price. I think bulk prices do need to go up. I do. I think the bulk syrup prices do need to go up. But it is 100%. This is what makes it interesting. The U.S. packers are using I don't buy any maple syrup from Canada. I don't buy any maple syrup from the Federation. I buy from U.S. producers. But what has happened is large packers can join the Federation, buy syrup. It can get shipped in at whatever that rate is. And that is what sets the U.S. price pretty much. I think it's like 10 cents. The U.S. price is typically 10 cents lower than the Canadian bulk rate due to freight, transportation. And the exchange rate pretty much determines the price of syrup. So not pretty much, like it does. So if you take, say Amber's 335 Canadian, this is how I do it. If anybody knows, does anybody know actually how to look up the pricing of the Federation? Like, why is this a secret? Like, I want to put a ticker on the front of my building and on my website so everybody knows at all times what Federation pricing is, because it's like, it's not really accessible. It's supposed to be public, and you almost got to know somebody who knows somebody to get the price. It'd be nice to get that, because if I had a way to get it, I would just post it for everybody. Like, why is it a secret? Like, why can't we have transparency? So Hamilton Sage is asking, why did the Federation set prices and they did not go up down equally for organic and conventional? I don't know. I do know they went up 10 cents. So I do know that they have gone up 10 cents. I don't know if that was just for the negotiation with the farmers for like cost of living. I don't know why they did, but they did bump it 10 cents a pound. And I think most of the time it's a 3-year contract with incremental raises on the cost of syrup. So Hamilton, can you tell me if they went higher for conventional? There's just a lot more organic syrup on the market than there is conventional. And when you are selling, like when we're buying from farmers and then selling to food manufacturers, they have been trained that conventional is a lower cost than organic. And so they'll go out to market and sell, make their product, formulate it, and sell a conventional product. But I think there's starting to be, I think if all things hold equal, let's just say there was no tariff. I believe that conventional would have ticked up a little bit closer to organic this year due to the amount of inventory everybody has for organic. That's what I believe would have happened without a tariff. It's just kind of a gut looking at things, listening. Bob Bellinger says, evening, Bob. I think I heard that conventional went up 7 cents and organic went up 3 cents per pound. So that's from Hamilton Sage. And that's kind of like what I think would happen. So if that's what happened in Quebec, that's likely what would happen in the United States as well. But there's not a lot of conventional. There is no conventional dark. And I've been thinking about doing this. So if you're listening or watching, I have been thinking about having talked to David Hughes. He's got like four drums of bulk syrup, but nowhere to take it in Michigan there. And I've been thinking about this, like, what if I brought my box truck to like southern central Michigan and we had a buy day. We basically said, look, bring your buckets, bring your pails, bring your drums, and then we'll suck everything out, put it in a tote, and then we pay you. I've been thinking about doing this almost like a mobile like buy day. The only concern is if my box truck can only hold 30,000 pounds, it's going to be first come, first serve. Because if people bring 50,000 pounds or 40,000 pounds, like they used to do buy days all the time. They'd actually take drums, tip them down, and roll them. At least in Ohio, they'd roll them to get them on the scale because it was just easier to transfer drums by tipping them down and then rolling them through the building. So it'd be easier to roll it onto a scale, weigh it, roll it off, and just keep doing that. So Tom says, come on, Nate. I buy little dollars in Chinese stainless. That you know of, Tom. That's the point. There's nothing that would stop a company from putting a made in Canada sticker on something from China. There's no like, who's going to know? So there's also a second phase. So I think people need to know this. The first phase of the tariff is 25%. This came out today. There's also a second phase that they're hoping to roll out for manufacturing. So that means like if US companies are in the United States and they're competing with somebody in Canada, and let's just say they're cheating and they're buying from China and shipping down, I think this is what the Trump administration is going to look at. And potentially there would be a second tariff. So Tom says, I'll willingly buy from the US, but you don't have a choice on fittings. I mean, I'm thinking about this with glass, right? And this is the truth. There's a company in New Jersey called RDOG, and there was all sorts of issues post-COVID with supply chain. Remember, like getting a shipping container was a ridiculous price. So we started buying some glass from this US manufacturer, the 12-ounce bottle with a little worthless loop handle. And man, they just broke. Like the quality of glass in the United States for the maple glass is awful, at least from our experience. Like the Chinese actually make better glass. And I know D&G has moved on to some other countries like Slovenia or something, and they have suppliers outside of China. Let's see. Steve says, when I broached going organic to my buyer in Quebec last summer, he commented, "Don't bother. The conventional price is rising." It's probably been coming for a while. I think Bruce Bascom once said half of the syrup in the world is conventional and half is organic. But if you're a larger producer, typically pays to go organic. And I think this is where the challenge is coming is as it gets harder and harder for the small producer to make it, you're only going to end up with large producers producing organic and less of the smaller producers producing conventional. So there's going to be parity. And somebody asked me, "Hey Nate, should I be organic or conventional?" I always say go organic, because you can sell to the entire market. It's not about the price. It's about having the ability to sell to anybody. You don't buy it. None of us on here buy maple syrup. We're not the customer, and our opinion doesn't matter. So whether you think you should be, or syrup should be organic or not, it doesn't matter. The market buys it. You don't. But I tell people, do organic so you can sell to anybody. This actually might be the year to just stay conventional because there isn't that much of a margin. What else you got? This is the most I've had. I think, ask questions. There's 60 people. I saw it shoot up over 60 people. And I've actually sent this invite out to a few people if they wanted to jump on. So Jeff Outdoor says, evening, Nate. Yeah, it's a pretty relevant topic, isn't it? He says, great topic. I mean, we've been thinking about it, and then my phone was blowing up all day. I got texts saying, tariffs are on, baby. I don't necessarily think that if all things hold even, that syrup will go up 25% in the U.S. I think that Canada will do some things to try to mitigate that. Maybe even, eat some of it to keep the market going. So let's just say, like that 25%, everybody just assumes that Canada is going to do nothing. That the Federation is going to do nothing. Andrew Easton, I actually sent him a text 2 days ago. I said, "Hey man, if you need to get some log splitters across the border before this tariff starts, let me know." And he said he had orders shoot out big time. So Michael Pat says, Hamilton, organic is a joke. It's paperwork. It's true. It's just documentation. So if you have the documentation, Carl said he could pop in here. Let's see. Let me get an invite over to somebody real quick. So big news tonight are Jared won his basketball game. Jonathan got his congressional nomination for the Naval Academy. And the wrestling playoffs start soon. He would be a good Navy SEAL. You definitely would want a guy like that chasing down the bad guys. Wrestlers are just a little bit sadistic. Like pain, like causing pain. Let's see if I can find it. Still looking here, guys. Sorry. Sending this over. Sorry about that. Now that I have it, I'll be able to send it to anybody. If anyone else wants to go live that actually has my cell phone, I will text you if you wanted to be a guest here tonight. Reese is asking, have I started tapping yet? No, I have not. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to tap this year, guys. I wish I could. This would be a great year to tap, especially if bulk price goes up. I just am not going to be able to tap this year. Jeff Outdoor says, hold on one second. hate texting while I'm on here. It's rude. I'm sorry. Jeff says you should have come down to the Western Reserve Homestead Summit a couple weeks ago. Talked lots of maple. I'll bet. I'm hoping that I responded to the invite that was on Pete Ross' video earlier today, that if they're going to have a roundtable, I'd be happy to come in and talk to people. We're going to have a couple people from University of Vermont, I believe. So what else you got, guys? So it's my friend Eric Park, who went to high school together. He went to the Hornets game tonight, and there he is with Muggsy Bogues, who he's a pretty short guy. Eric's about my height. So here we go. We got Carl logging on in this.
What's up,
Carl,
man?
you're always gangster in that hoodie, dude.
Dude, I'm just out here, saving money, freezing, building ROs,
So that's why you don't have heat.
No, I got heat here. I just ran outside to get some membranes, so.
Gotcha. So how are orders coming in for you?
Good. We're busy. Staying busy. This is like our peak week usually. Traditionally, February 1st through the 8th or so is the busiest week, so.
So Carl owns the RO bucket. He's helping me with a project at my facility because I'm going to have RO water feeding my boiler and feeding my wash water and stuff.
There it is.
So yeah, he drew me up the plans. And
nice. I use Microsoft Finger to do plans here, so really nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun little project. That'll be nice.
Yeah, we'll definitely, make a video on it. Probably maybe two. Depends on how long it takes to finish it up.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It's like anything. All the bare bone stuff is easy, and then you get into the like valving and stuff, and that's what takes all the time. So
that's why you got good people helping you. Right?
Yeah, that's why you got somebody, so you should be all right.
Well, Carl, this is the busiest time of year for you these next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And,
yeah, most likely. I mean, it's hit or it depends on the season, but it looks like most of the country is going to be starting up here if they haven't started already. So, like last year, I know last year was weird because like it ended early. So usually I'm selling pretty good into late March, but last year like it shut off mid-March and sales just quit because everybody was done. So.
What we've been texting obviously tonight in the group text about all sorts of things. None of it really relevant to tariffs, but we were talking about it a little bit, and it's an unknown. Like we don't really know. Did you hear about the second tariff?
Maybe. Which one's that?
So the 25% was about border security. That's what they say, border security. And then they're actually evaluating another one just for manufacturing.
Yeah. On top of that. That's what they did.
So
in China, there's like a 5.7%, and then there's a 25% on top of that for a lot of goods. So then what they can do is they can set stuff that, like maybe maple equipment won't be under the 25%, but they'll still charge the 5.7. So it's like a way from the scaffold the different tariffs and still make us pay. Yeah,
they're gonna add 10% to China as well on top.
On top of so now for China you'll have 5.7, then you'll have 25%, then you'll have another 10 on top of that.
35. You're at 40.
Yeah.
Now I had some glass quoted from China, and I find this interesting. They're like, we'll send you 2 invoices. We'll send you one.
Yeah, they
real like one, and the second one that you can.
Yeah.
I'm like.
Yeah, you want no part of that.
No, I'm like, well, I'm not going to prison for you,
No, it's like once you're the importer record on something, you just can't play around like that. But that's a lot of games that China will play is like they'll do these DDP terms, delivered, duty paid, and they'll fudge whatever invoice they want, and they just play dirty. But then that's the issue. Like there's always ways around it. I mean, we read articles about them like sending containers and getting a new bill of lading in some other country and sending it out. And like a lot of that stuff on Amazon, that's how they're doing it. They're FBAing it to Amazon through another port, getting the bill of lading redone, and then they're skirting the tariff. And that's why, these Chinese manufacturers are selling stuff directly on Amazon to U.S. people. And you look at the price, and you're like, how can they sell it for that? And it's like, they can because they're the ones making it.
So
and
they're avoiding the tariff through Amazon?
What's that?
They're avoiding the tariff through Amazon? Is that what they're doing?
Well, they're avoiding the tariff because they're sending their container to another port, having the container unloaded from a ship, having a new origin and bill of lading made up, putting it back on another ship, and then sending it in. So when it gets to the U.S.,
the Panama Canal,
Spain, or something. Yeah, exactly.
It's relevant because China's building bridges.
Yeah.
So what Carl's saying, and I never even thought about it, is they can ship to the Panama Canal, unload, and then sell it from Panama.
Yeah, or even before it gets to Panama, Yeah. So
now,
I mean, the tariffs only hurt middle class people. It's like that shouldn't be a tariff. It should be called a sales tax because that's what it is. You're paying money to the government for a good, just like you would sales tax. But when you use the word tariff, everybody looks at it a different way. But it's not.
Yeah, they think Canada's paying, but it's not. Like
it's not. Tariffs aren't. Yeah, no, and it's like if I ship RO buckets to Canada, there's no tariff on them. The tariff is from Canadian stuff coming here. They might retaliate and do a tariff as well. But right now, all it is that if I buy something from Canada, I pay a 25% tax to the United States government. It has nothing to do with Canada. It has nothing to do with Canadian manufacturers. We're the ones paying it, so.
It actually, if you think about it, the 25% tariff just gets it closer to par, right? I mean, I remember when it was dollar for dollar.
Yeah, it's like $1.44 right now.
Yeah, and why do people do it one way? I like to do it the other way.
Well, I do it that way because that's the way my business goes. You know what I mean?
I got you.
So from my perspective, they pay $1.44. So that's what's relevant to me. It's not because I'm still getting U.S. dollars. It's insignificant to me what they pay. But as someone who sells to them, I'd like to know in their head what they're being charged for it. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. So you're like we're 7.7, whatever it would be. Yeah.
Right now it's like 0.68, 0.69.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. I don't know why. It's just how I look at it.
Well, because you're looking at it from the mindset that if you were to buy something in Canadian dollars, how much would it cost you in U.S. dollars? Whereas I'm looking at
so that's why Bruce uses the other one because he's usually bringing Canadian syrup.
Yeah, exactly. It's just.
And I'm thinking about if it's 335 CAD, I always convert that to U.S. dollars. So it's like what 220 or 230 USD.
Yeah.
So I multiply that dollar figure by whatever the exchange rate is, 0.67, 0.9. 0.69, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So some comments coming in here. Alex says, with the Canadian dollar so bad, do you think a 25% tariff will be a deciding factor for U.S. buying Canadian syrup? I don't quite understand your question. I actually see there's so many variables. It's a multivariate equation. And I don't recommend people go out and mortgage their house and just start like going.
Yeah, well, the Canadian dollar is kind of insignificant because it's been that way for so long. So the tariff really has nothing to do with the value of the Canadian dollar because we sort of built our businesses around what that dollar is anyway. Because it's been bad now for like a year and a half.
But it could get worse. And that's the point.
It could get worse. It could get better. Who knows? Yeah, it could do anything. It's like.
So if oil drops, the Canadian dollar drops because there's a strong correlation.
Yeah.
So why would oil drop?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons. Yeah, it's like oversupply, or like during COVID, people didn't need it. I mean, it's supply and demand. So either of those two things are going to drive oil prices. Or if the pipeline gets cut off, that would be another factor.
Well, I heard the threat of not sending natural gas to New England. Listen, Canada's not going to win a trade war. That's not a really good idea.
Yeah, no one wins trade wars.
No,
that's the problem.
Well, retaliation, it's like, I think 63% of their exports come to the United States. Like, we're the customer.
Yeah, well, Canada. I mean, like there's a lot of manufacturing in like Wisconsin, Minnesota, and stuff. But it's like I don't know.
Michigan going
I
through
mean, like
over.
I try and source stuff, and anytime I find something I want to source, it's in like the Midwest or in Canada. You know what I mean? There's not a whole lot. It seems, at least what I or even Northwest. So
So this guy Carl Sotens, he says it's crazy to lose so much on the exchange rate right now. I'd love to bring over some equipment and monitoring systems, but almost 50% more cost. So Carl, what country are you in and where are you taking it? I imagine you're from Canada.
see, Canada has 13% like PST too, which wipes them out. And that's
Is that the tax they pay just to live there? There's like a kind of
no,
a
that's
problem.
a sales tax, like a local province tax. So like if I sell an RO bucket to Canada for $480, they have to pay $1.44 on that. Plus they have to pay $86 shipping. Then they have to pay 13% tax on that and the shipping. So it gets like really expensive if you import something. And like it's not a tariff. The 13% they're paying, it's not a tariff, that's just their sales tax. It's like if you were to buy something in New York, it's 8%. It's 13% there, But a lot of people think that's like a tariff or a duty. It's not a duty. It's just they pay that on everything, 13%. Yeah. And that's basically province, I think.
I actually have two guys that work at Bissell Maple Farm that are, they're dairy farmers, and they're 75, Fred and Ralph, and they each have a son that works for Border Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
And one is on the northern border and one's down in Yuma. And it's just been interesting talking to them through the last, Adam was in Iraq, like, one of the first guys through to Baghdad, like he's military and now works in, for the Border Patrol. Yeah. Just listening to what they've done, like over the last 4 years. Imagine working Border Patrol and how demeaning that's been for 4 years.
Yeah, like TSA, all those jobs are just, that's a tough job. You're really not making anyone happy on a day-to-day basis,
But Adam's trying to transfer up here. So I'm off Lake Erie, and Ontario is just, it's not that far away. I mean, Lake Erie's kind of skinny. So what they're doing is they're running jet skis for drugs. So Border Patrol and Coast Guard on Lake Erie there.
Yeah, Ontario. We have a ton of CBP up here where I'm at too, because we're on Lake Ontario. But
you're Ontario now. Are you hearing about? It must be that they're small enough crafts that they can't pick up on it.
Really, with like radar, you mean?
I would think they could see it.
I don't know. I've never heard anything about it. I know there's a lot.
Maybe while it's effective, could you imagine taking off across a lake on a ski-doo?
Yeah, 75 miles an hour. You get there in no time, dude. Yeah. Even if you haul like a gram, it doesn't matter. You're moving so fast. Yeah, you can. Yeah,
that's funny.
I got to get a jet ski and get some RO buckets over there. That's what I got to do.
You got to start running illegal RO buckets. You can.
I need a snowmobile now.
RO buckets.
We gotta do when the lake's frozen and get them over.
Yeah.
Bring like a cargo trailer across the lake.
So 4 Kids Farm says the 13% is our HST in Ontario. If you are a business, this is what I understood. I was talking to Kevin Lawyer about this. He said, if you're a business, you get that 13% back if you buy something.
Okay, yeah.
And the HST is sales tax. So owning a business in Canada, can be lucrative.
Yeah, see, we're different. Whereas, I don't know. I guess maybe we're not. Yeah, we're different here because if you're a business, you don't pay it to begin with, right? So in Canada, you have to pay it and get it back. Whereas here, we just don't pay it. If you're a business, we don't pay it to begin with. We're exempt ahead of time.
So Michael, I'm going to help educate you a little bit here. Michael Patz says sap comes out of a tree. A tree is a tree. How much more do you want to make it organic? 2 + 2 = 4.
Well, Michael, man.
We know that. We live in a maple producing area. I think, 22 states now that make maple syrup. But unfortunately in Arizona, they don't know how it's made. They actually think there's ingredients. That organic certification is not for you. The farmers always want to talk about how worthless it is. And I'm not disagreeing, but you don't buy it and your opinion doesn't matter. The farmer's opinion doesn't matter because they don't buy the syrup. It's somebody in California, Seattle, Portland. If a U.S. tariff is a tax, then a Canadian tax is a tariff. I don't know. It's too late for that kind of mind.
I guess. Who is that?
Tom Chambers. That's who that was.
I thought it was.
Yeah. Border Patrol has a heavy presence at Raccoon Park, just east of Conneaut, Ohio, on the PA side during the boating season. Yeah, it's like right there in Girard, I think. Like they actually have a spot for Border Patrol.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we're, north off of Interstate 90. So what else we got, Carl? Like this is the most people we've had.
Wow, how many are not even on the YouTube? You caught me
it was
on
up
fire.
to 62. We're at about 55 right now. Normally we hover around 45, 50, so we're up by 10%.
Well, you're getting popular.
Oh man, I'm just cool.
I guess so. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's about the time of year when I want to be all done. So unfortunately, I have like another month and a half left. So
and you're just running on adrenaline. Are you getting much sleep, buddy?
No, since I quit my job teaching like 2 years ago, it's a different ball game. Like I used to be up till 2 a.m. because I had to work the next day and I couldn't ship. But it's kind of a little more relaxed now because like warranty wise, if someone needs something, I'm not stressed out at work because I can't ship it out. Now I can take calls and deal with it. So it's kind of nice.
So Tom Tompkins says, I enjoy Sapchat every week. And he's not new to farming, but he's new to maple, though. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for watching. It's actually doing really well on Spotify. I'm shocked that people want to listen to me. I don't know anything.
Yeah, is Spotify video too, or is it just audio?
It's just audio, and Maple's so niche that if people are listening to Maple content, there just isn't a Maple podcast. Well, you know what? Cornell has one.
Yeah. Are they still doing them though, or no?
I don't know. I listened to them. It sounded really rehearsed. Like they had a script at the beginning. Like,
well, we rehearsed it.
Carl, like I don't mean to make fun of them, but I'm perfectly comfortable.
Well, that's their way of doing things. It's
they're
more professional.
Prepared. Yeah, I'm not. Like I'm in my kitchen, dude. I had to move the Captain Crunch box.
Yeah.
Before I started, I got teenage boys.
Nice.
I had to move the Captain Crunch.
Yeah, they're doing like informational content. 3/4 of what we're doing is just BS, So.
It is, dude. It's more like 90%.
Yeah, I was giving you that 5%, but yeah, you're right.
I know. So, how much econ did you take? Did you ever take econ in either undergrad or grad school?
Yeah, I did we did the minimum. I don't. New York State has like a minimum.
Was it like microeconomics, macroeconomics? Yeah, did you take economics?
I did like AP economics in high school and stuff, but
yeah, I'm so old they didn't have AP, Carl.
What's that?
I said I'm so old they didn't have AP.
No. Yeah, so I took some, but I'm not the best businessman, but it's like I'm the kind of guy that know what needs to be done, and I do it and make people happy. So
what's interesting, I think I've thought about this often. I've thought about how in the long run everything gets lower cost because efficiencies occur.
Yeah, and like economies of scale, like if you keep making the same product year after year and you're growing, you can order more stuff in bulk, and then the costs go down. But by the same token, is like usually that means you're getting more employees and payrolls going up. That's the trade-off when you grow your business like that. Whereas I think about not hiring anyone, so like things are getting maybe a little cheaper,
I think about the Federation, and like they have a growth imperative, right? They have to grow, kind of like China. Once people in China like get to eat meat, like the Communist Party stays in power because they have to keep growing.
Yeah.
Once they stop growing, then the people can be like, this sucks. I used to eat meat and now I have to go back to rice all the time. Mm-hmm. And they have to keep, it's called a growth imperative. And I think about that with the Federation. They have to keep growing because they have to maintain control of the supply to maintain an equal to keep the price stable.
Yeah.
And I often think about how they have to keep expanding. Like they've added taps and expanded because, and like the U.S. completely gets all the advantages. Like we have a free market. You can go buy mountains. We have some downsides that the cost of our property is higher. We can't lease crown land. Like imagine if you could just go into the Adirondacks and be like, I want to lease taps, and it being like, I want to say 20 cents a tap. I can't remember what the crown land. They rent it by the hectare, which is 2.5 acres. And if there's 100 taps per acre, and you're only paying $30 for 2.5 acres, and there's 100 taps per acre, like the lease is way low.
Yeah.
Like it's like U.S. farmers cannot compete with crown land. I mean, if you look at
our
map,
property taxes are higher than that.
yeah, I mean, and they have more land. Like in general, like I found New Brunswick interesting because when I went out and visited Hargroves there, which that video has just been blowing up lately. If you haven't watched it yet, it's 200. And I'm talking to the Spotify people right now. Like if you go to YouTube, it's 260,000 taps, and I think Zach last told me he wants to go to 500,000, and he can lease the crown land and keep expanding. So New Brunswick is outside of Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
They're like free market like we are, and so is Ontario. So Ontario is a free market maple. New Brunswick, and I want to say there's another province up there that makes maple syrup. It's is there like what is it?
Manitoba.
Yeah, there's another one too. No, Manitoba's towards the
that's
middle.
about like yeah. Right.
This makes me want to. I have to text Javier and just be like, because he's a big hockey fan. I'll be like, hey man, hockey's going to cost 20. Your paper.
Northeast.
He's got season tickets to the Panthers. He's down in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario.
So WTWHTV12 says, I like the Cornell podcast. Wish they did it more often. That's been the biggest request I've heard is consistency. I listened to one and I'm like, they got something. They got the first Maple podcast. I'm like, that's cool. And then Vince Portelli says, Nate, the great. I tune in and like every Sapchat, keep them coming. What do we got? Are you finding huge delays in shipping to Canada, Carl? Because of the mail strike we had.
I have a Canadian dealer, and I used to ship a ton. Like last year, I shipped a ton to Canada, but my new dealer is moving most of my stuff in Canada. I mean, yeah, there's not many delays. I use USPS. If I ship something to Canada, it takes like 12 days, USPS. If you want it quick, you got to ship it UPS, but then you have to pay like an $18 fee on your end when you get it, plus your province tax. So sometimes when I ship it UPS quick, people complain they have to pay that $18. So I try to just use USPS, even though it's slower, but yeah.
So Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. So those are the two, I've like New Brunswick was pretty. Let's see. Yeah, I was talking about that. The growth imperative and how they have to keep growing the taps in order to maintain the supply. To maintain the supply, you can control the price. We could just keep expanding, but what happens when you run into that's why they have to keep marketing and selling and finding new markets and building.
Yeah, because if you keep making more, I mean, the only way to, like, if you reach your demand, then that's an issue, right? So it's like, that's why, you keep marketing. Like, that's kind of what I do. It's like, at some point, is every person going to have an RO bucket? Like, no, you just advertise more and you find more people, or you have people like Nate that are getting younger people into it. You know what I mean? It's like the industry's out. I don't think you're losing people. I think you're just going to keep getting more people, and
now, Carl, we are, how far into this are we? Probably, I'm 45 minutes into it. So can we tell them about the RO bucket deal? Like, I haven't had a chance to make a video yet. The likelihood of any of these guys, I don't know. Do you want to tell them about the RO bucket deal?
Like how it works, or what do you mean?
No, I mean like your shipping deal with the promo code, or you want to wait till
Oh
I make
yeah. So yeah, Bissell. We have a promo code for free shipping. If you type in Bissell, spell your name for us.
It's Bissell. 2 S's, 2 L's. Just like the vacuum cleaner, but we don't suck.
Yeah. So yeah, if you put that in, you can get free shipping on any like large orders. I think it's set up for over $200 and above orders.
So buy a bigger one. That's the whole point.
Yeah, get the biggest one you can. Yeah, with the most expensive shipping, and you'll do the best. So,
here's some good questions. Hasn't the U.S. maple production tripled in the last 25 years? I want to say quadrupled. I remember when I first got in, I think Bruce told me it doubled in 10 years, and then it doubled again in 10 years, which would be quadrupled. So like from 2000 to 2020, that was a quadrupling. So it went.
So if it was just like marketing and more people writing down how much syrup they're making, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think what they were doing is looking at spouts, right? I think like spout manufacturing.
Or how much bulk being bought. And
yeah, I think like Leader rode a wave. Like a lot of these companies rode a wave of growth, and they say it's going to double in 15 years. So it's going to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, the spout thing is weird too, though, because they also told people to replace spouts every year, so that's why they started selling more spouts. That's it. See, that's it. I don't know. That's like my issue with all that, and it's like I like research and stuff, but it's like it's hard to say it doubled if you look at anything like that, because if Cornell and Procter tell everyone to replace spouts every year, and they're tracking maple syrup production based on spouts, of course it's going to look like it doubled. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but these guys are so good at it. I had a friend who worked for a company that sold information to like, I don't know, Wall Street. And they were so good, they could go out into like Home Depot parking lots and literally tell like what Home Depot was going to do in sales. As well as Home Depot.
Right.
And
yeah,
like,
yeah, they're looking at the whole picture. They're not.
Yeah, how in the world can people go to like a Home Depot parking lot in several states, and they would do the math and they'd sell the information. And I think about guys like Bruce who have pieces of information that I can't even comprehend yet. But one of my favorite stories is like the state of New York makes 1 million gallons, and he would go, "That's not true, because I buy more than 1 million gallons."
Yeah, right. New Hampshire, like he's bought more New Hampshire than New Hampshire made or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, somebody even has said it. Hamilton said it. So I hope that answers your question, Gavin. Nate, do you think the Federation helps keep price up, or do they make it lower? I think they make it stable. They have no control over the currency. They're basically removing the variable of supply and demand, but that's what makes this interesting. They have stable pricing, but they do not control the exchange rate. So if oil goes way up, syrup should go up. If oil goes down, syrup should go down. And these are called correlations. So it's almost always. I wouldn't bet your house on it, but it's
because if oil goes down, the American dollar, the buying power of the American dollar goes up. So we're going to get it cheaper. But
yeah, so I think it's a good thing. I think it's been great for stability, but having this discussion, almost this is where I am. I'm a Milton Friedman guy. Almost every government program will end up doing the opposite of the intent. What did he say? If you put the federal government in charge of the Sahara Desert, they will run out of sand in about, I mean, he's being facetious, but is he? So I know the Federation is not a government-run program, but it has become or could become a bureaucracy in the fact that we need more employees. We got to do marketing. Like they keep taking more from the farm. What was that, Carl?
They've been doing it a long time.
They have, right? They have. They're enforced by the government. So if they're gonna like confiscate somebody's syrup, and for the most part, I would say most producers in Quebec like it. But there are some people that are like, I want to be free,
Yeah.
So let's see.
But they're free to make it, or they're free to. So.
So Bruce buys more syrup from New York than the USDA even gets reported. I think he buys more from Western New York than is reported to the USDA personally. I don't know. I know this, like for me and my company, I plan on buying as much, we're close to Western New York and we're kind of in the middle of the Maple Belt. We have this strange thing where like we're in the middle and it's the same for us to ship from the Northeast as it is from the Western Maple Belt. So Wisconsin, Michigan. So we're in the center, right off Interstate 90. So it doesn't cost me any more to ship from the east than it does from the west. And one of the strange things that happened last year is maple syrup was actually most expensive in Wisconsin because I opened my big mouth and basically went out there and said, I'm going to buy syrup. And then all the tertiary, secondary packers were like, we're going to raise our price too. And it became like a bidding war, which is good because competition, there hasn't been as much competition in Wisconsin, which it actually drove the price up higher than Northeast, which I thought was interesting. I think it's going to occur again. I think the price of bulk syrup in Wisconsin is probably going to elevate again.
You got to tell me you don't want it.
No, heck no. No, like actually, my customers really like it. So Wisconsin tends to be darker, but I just started paying Bruce's wage out there. So the way it's been, or not rate, the way it's been traditionally is Bruce is in New Hampshire. He has a bulk price and goes out he used to come into Ohio, but he comes just about Western Pennsylvania and Western New York. And he's kind of like starting to move like east because, he's got Maine. Maine is just producing a ton of syrup. So Bruce kind of controls the syrup in Maine. And less and less of the Midwest syrup was shipping out east. And when you get to Wisconsin, they can go less because of the cost of the freight. There was no packer in the middle. And being a packer in the middle, I can actually pay Northeast rates to the Wisconsin farmers. You're welcome. Even if you don't sell to me, you're welcome. Like the entire state's syrup prices went up because we were like, hey, this is good syrup. There's a lot of it. So we actually increased the bulk rate of maple syrup in the state of Wisconsin because the rest of them didn't have to go up.
Sorry, my furnace kicked on. I don't know if it's
no worries, man. It's a little fuzzy until you talk.
Yeah, well, I got my mic muted, so.
So yeah, I think we're gonna just grow more in Wisconsin. At some point, I think I will try to buy a location in Wisconsin because I want to make sure people know I'm there. Like Nate's here temporarily. No, I'm not. A lot of that syrup that we are getting was actually filled. The orders were filled by Wisconsin syrup. We went and got the business at a large syrup company, and that syrup was indirectly going there through another packer, and we went and just got that business. So I think this year you'll see that there's going to be a little bit more supply available in Wisconsin than there was last year because we got that contract later in the year.
Nice. You have your own trucks, or do you have people?
We do both, but like it costs like $1,000 a month in repairs.
Yeah.
Like these trucks, if they go to the shop, it's $1,000, and like every time. And we bought a later model because I'm done with truck problems. So we went and bought a later model, and guess what? Truck problems. Like
better off with all.
I think we're better off actually using commercial freight, but oftentimes we're needed on short runs, or we can't get a truck, or the freight rates are just stupid. Yeah. So we utilize it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, man, well, I appreciate it, Carl. Appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah,
how many orders do you have to fill right now?
Oh man, I shipped all day today. I'm probably 28 orders behind. So
you're 28 orders behind
right now. Yeah.
How many did you ship throughout the day?
I shipped like 40 today.
And you still got 28 more to do.
Yeah, because they just keep coming in, Nate. They don't stop. I got them coming in when I'm talking to you here.
That's awesome. Like how many rolled in while you were on here?
We had 3 orders come in while I was on here.
Gosh.
So
that's awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate everybody. Peace out. I'm done.
Cool.
Have
Thank
a
you. It's always a pleasure, buddy.
Yep. Thanks, man. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Cool. See ya.
See ya.